You think a man like you gets to play hero?
You think a man like you gets to play hero? Claire Whitmore's voice was close, too close, like the cold edge of a blade held just behind Marcus Reed's ear. Marcus didn't turn right away. He stood in the seam of a half-open door where the executive boardroom bled its white light into the dim hallway. On the other side of the glass, silhouettes sat like statues around a long table. Black suits, crossed arms, phones face down, the posture of people who believed time belonged to them. Marcus kept his eyes on the crack in the door. His left hand was in his coat pocket, wrapped around something small and hard and unforgiving. A USB drive, no bigger than a thumbnail, but heavy enough to pull his entire life off balance. The air conditioning blew down the corridor in a constant dry stream. It raised goosebumps along his forearms. It carried a faint, sterile smell, the kind hospitals had, the kind that made you think of metal rails and controlled breathing and outcomes decided by charts. Behind him, a soft sound. Kssst! The whisper of a wheel adjusting. Marcus finally turned his head, not all the way, just enough to see the corner of Claire's reflection in the glass wall. She sat in a sleek wheelchair like it was a throne that had been lowered. Her hair was perfect, her jaw was set, her eyes were sharp enough to cut through apology. There was a time Marcus would have looked away first. Today wasn't that time. "I don't want to be a hero," Marcus said, voice low, careful. "I just want people to stop stepping on the ones who don't have anywhere left to back up." Claire's lips barely moved. "And you think you get to decide that?" Marcus looked down the hallway, past the framed photographs of company milestones and magazine covers featuring Claire's face, past the silent plants that had never known a human hand. The end of the corridor was an elevator bank, 4 doors of brushed steel. He waited. A heartbeat. Another. Then it came, the sound he'd been hearing in his dreams for weeks. Ding! The elevator doors slid open. Gavin Holt stepped out like the building itself owed him space. COO, interim leader, the man who wore sympathy in public and cruelty in private. 2 security guards flanked him, broad shoulders, earpieces, hands near their belts like a warning. Gavin's eyes landed on Marcus and brightened with the kind of smile that didn't reach the soul. "Oh," Gavin said. "Perfect timing." Claire didn't move, but Marcus felt her gaze tighten, like a hand closing around a wrist. "Marcus," Gavin called, soft, friendly, deadly. "You're in the wrong place." Marcus exhaled once, slow. He could taste metal, like he'd bitten his own tongue earlier, and the blood had never stopped. "I'm exactly where I need to be," Marcus said. Gavin's smile thinned. "Remove him." The guards started forward. Marcus didn't run. He slipped his hand from his pocket and held the USB up between 2 fingers, like a match that could set the whole floor on fire. "I wouldn't," Marcus said. The guard slowed anyway, because power recognized power, even when it wore a janitor badge and a tired father's eyes. Gavin's gaze flicked to the drive. "What is that?" Marcus looked at Claire. Her face didn't change, but something in her eyes shifted, just a fraction, just enough to tell him his suspicion had been right all along. "Don't plug that in," Claire said quietly. Marcus's throat tightened. "Too late," he whispered. And then, like the final step off a cliff, he pushed the boardroom door open. The hinges made a small sound, an almost polite complaint. The room turned. 20 faces, some curious, some irritated, some already calculating how to erase him later. Marcus walked in anyway, because he could already see Maya's face in his mind, asleep with a book open on her chest, waiting for a father who always came home tired, but never came home small. Because he'd spent too many years swallowing injustice like it was the cost of oxygen. Because this time, the cost wasn't just his pride. This time, people were losing their lives in pieces. Insurance, paychecks, dignity. This time, he wasn't going to let the truth get buried under polished wood and legal language. He reached the conference table. He set the USB down. The screen at the front of the room blinked, waiting. Claire's voice came again, lower than before. "You have no idea what you're doing." Marcus met her gaze, steady. "I know exactly what I'm doing," he said. "I'm ending it." And as he leaned forward to plug the drive into the presentation port, the camera at the far corner of the room, the one with the red light, kept recording. A silent witness. A hungry eye. A future Marcus hadn't planned for. 3 weeks earlier, Marcus Reed was just another name on a schedule, another badge that opened the same doors and never the doors that mattered. He didn't know the top floor would become a battlefield. He didn't know a wheelchair would become a weapon. He didn't know that the sound of an elevator ding could start to feel like a countdown. He only knew one thing: Maya needed him, and he had to make it to Friday. Morning came the way it always did, too early, too fast, and with no respect for how tired a body could be. Marcus woke before his alarm, because Maya had a talent for twisting blankets into knots and sleep into a negotiation. The apartment was small but clean, the kind of place that held the scent of laundry detergent and cereal and a father doing his best. He lay still for a moment, listening. There was the hum of the refrigerator, the faint traffic from the street, and from the room beside his, the soft, steady breathing of a child who trusted the world because she had no choice. Marcus sat up, careful not to creak the bed frame. His knees ached in the way they always did when money didn't stretch to proper shoes and hours didn't stretch to proper rest. In the kitchen, he made oatmeal and cut a banana into coins because Maya liked the circles. He packed her lunch, sandwich, apple slices, a little note folded into a heart that said, "I love you bigger than the sky. Dad." Then he packed his own lunch, a cheap plastic container with rice and chicken from last night, wrapped in foil, tucked into a lunchbox that had seen better years. The zipper stuck sometimes. The fabric was frayed at the corners. He kept it anyway. It was the kind of thing you kept when life taught you to hold on to what still worked. Maya stumbled into the kitchen in socks too big for her feet, hair wild like she'd been arguing with her pillow. "Dad," she mumbled. Marcus smiled. "Morning, Peanut." She rubbed her eyes and climbed into her chair. "Do I have art today?" "You do," Marcus said. "And you're going to be the best artist in the whole school." Maya squinted at him. "Even better than you?" Marcus laughed, quiet. "I can barely draw a stick figure, so yes, definitely better than me." She grinned and took a bite of oatmeal. This was the part of the day Marcus protected with his whole soul, the soft part, the part before the world asked for proof that he deserved to exist in it. After breakfast, he helped Maya into her jacket, checked her homework, and walked her to school. The wind was sharp enough to sting. Maya's small hand fit into his like a promise. At the corner, she stopped and looked up at him, serious all of a sudden. "Dad," she said, "you're going to be okay today?" Marcus's throat tightened. Kids didn't ask questions like that unless they'd felt something in the air. He knelt, pulling her scarf up a little higher. "Yeah," he said. "I'm okay." Maya studied him as if she could read his thoughts. "You always say that." Marcus forced a smile. "Because it's true." She leaned forward and pressed her forehead to his, a small, fierce gesture. "Be brave," she whispered. Marcus closed his eyes for a second. "I will," he promised. Then Maya ran into the school, backpack bouncing, and Marcus watched until she disappeared inside. Only then did he turn toward the subway. Only then did the weight return. The headquarters of Whitmore Dynamics was the kind of building that didn't just scrape the sky. It claimed it. Glass and steel. Lobby floors polished to a shine you could see your exhaustion in. A receptionist who smiled like it was part of a brand strategy. Marcus swiped his badge and nodded to the security guard, who always mispronounced his name on purpose. "Morning, Mars," the guard said. "Marcus," Marcus corrected gently. The guard grinned. "Yeah, that." Marcus didn't argue further. He'd learned which fights were worth blood. He rode the elevator to the facilities office, basement level. That was where people like him lived in the building's bloodstream, making sure lights worked, servers stayed cool, toilets flushed, doors unlocked, cameras rolled, keeping the machine alive while other people took credit for its heartbeat. As he walked through to the hallway, the first ding of the day echoed from above. It sounded ordinary then. Later, it would sound like fate. He found his supervisor, Dale, hunched over a clipboard. "Read," Dale said without looking up. "You're late." Marcus checked his watch. He was 2 minutes early. "I'm here," Marcus said. Dale shrugged. "Then go be useful. VIP floor's got some special requests." Marcus's eyes flicked up. "Top floor?" Dale smirked. "Yeah, CEO's got a thing this week. Needs extra hands." Marcus frowned. A thing? Dale finally looked at him, eyes gleaming with the pleasure of knowing something someone else didn't. You didn't hear? Dale said. Claire Whitmore had an accident. The words hit like a sudden drop in temperature. Accident? Marcus repeated. Dale nodded, lowering his voice like it was gossip and not a human life. Car crash, or maybe a fall. Who knows with those people, but she's, you know. He mimed limp legs with his hand. Wheelchair. Marcus stared at him. Is she okay? Dale snorted. She's alive. That's what matters to shareholders. Marcus's stomach tightened. He'd never met Claire Whitmore in person, but her face was everywhere. Company posters, news articles, internal emails that began with "As your CEO" and ended with some version of "Excellence is non-negotiable." She's still coming in? Marcus asked. Dale shrugged. They say she wants to stay engaged. Whatever, now go. They need someone who can handle sensitive equipment and won't run their mouth. Marcus picked up his toolbox and his lunchbox. He headed toward the service elevator, and as the doors closed, he saw his reflection in the stainless steel. Tired eyes, worn jacket, a man trying to keep a family afloat in a city that didn't care if he sank. The elevator began to rise. Ding! The VIP floor was different from the rest of the building. The air smelled cleaner. The carpets muffled footsteps like money did. Marcus stepped out and immediately felt watched, by cameras, by staff, by the invisible idea of hierarchy. A woman in a blazer approached him, perfect posture, perfect smile that didn't touch the eyes. I'm Nina Alvarez, she said, executive assistant. Marcus nodded. Marcus Reed, facilities. Her gaze flicked to his badge, then to his face. You're the one with access to the security logs in the server room, correct? Marcus hesitated. For maintenance, yes. Nina's smile sharpened. Good, we may need you. She led him through a series of doors, each requiring a different access code, deeper into the polished core of the company. Then, Marcus saw her. Claire Whitmore. She sat in a wheelchair near a wall of windows that looked out over the city like a map. Sunlight spilled across her lap. Her legs were covered with a tailored blanket that matched her suit. She looked up as Marcus entered. Her eyes were the first thing he noticed. Not blue, not brown. Something in between. The color of storm clouds before lightning. She looked Marcus over once, quickly, like a scanner reading a barcode. You're Reed, she said. Her voice was controlled, measured. Marcus, he corrected automatically, then regretted it, because this was the kind of room where small corrections were seen as rebellion. Claire's gaze didn't change. Marcus, she repeated, like she was testing the taste of the name. You'll be on call for my floor. Marcus nodded. Yes, ma'am. Claire's lips curved slightly. It wasn't quite a smile, more like a decision. Good, she said. We'll see what kind of man you are. The hairs on Marcus's arms rose. He didn't know why. He just knew the sentence didn't belong in a normal workplace conversation. Nina handed him a list of tasks: check the conference room projector, ensure the private elevator card reader worked, verify the camera in the hallway outside Claire's office had no blind spots. No blind spots. Marcus did his work quietly, efficiently, but as he moved through the floor, he noticed things. Small things, details that didn't line up. Claire's wheelchair was always positioned with perfect symmetry, never angled, never off-center, like someone placed it there for a photograph. The private elevator arrived at exact times, even when no meeting was scheduled, as if someone had programmed it. Once, Marcus passed the hallway camera and saw it tilt by a degree, adjusting itself. He knew that model. It didn't auto-adjust. Someone was controlling it remotely. He noted it, filed it away, and kept moving. Later, as he checked the projector cables in a conference room, he heard voices beyond the door. Gavin Holt, smooth and warm as honey. Claire, you need to rest. Let me handle the operational side. Claire's voice, sharp. I'm not dead, Gavin. Gavin chuckled. No, but perception matters. Investors get nervous. A pause. Then Claire. They'll do what I tell them. Gavin. Of course, always. Marcus didn't hear more. He wasn't supposed to, but the word stuck. Perception matters. That night, Marcus went home, made Maya mac and cheese, listened to her talk about art class, and tried not to think about how Claire's eyes had looked at him like a question with teeth. He put Maya to bed and sat at the small kitchen table with his bills: rent, electricity, school supplies. Then his phone buzzed. An email from Dale. New policy. Overtime freeze. No exceptions. Marcus stared at it until the words blurred. Overtime was how he kept the lights on. He closed his eyes and breathed. In the other room, Maya coughed in her sleep. Marcus got up, checked on her, smoothed her hair. And in the quiet, he realized something that felt like a stone dropping into his chest. If this job went away, his life didn't just get harder. It collapsed. The next day, the building felt different. People whispered in elevators. Managers held quick meetings behind closed doors. HR sent out a message about organizational efficiency and strategic alignment. The kind of words that came before layoffs. Marcus saw Gavin in the lobby, surrounded by suits, smiling for a photographer like a man born to be seen. Claire wasn't there. The absence was a presence. On the VIP floor, Nina called Marcus aside. "We need you to do something," she said. Marcus raised an eyebrow. "What?" Nina lowered her voice. "There's a privacy concern. A camera outside Ms. Whitmore's office captured something it shouldn't have." Marcus frowned. If it captured something, that's what it's for. Nina's eyes hardened. "We need you to delete a small segment. 2 minutes, that's all." Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. "That's not procedure," he said carefully. Nina stepped closer. "It's a request from Ms. Whitmore." Marcus thought of Maya. He thought of overtime being frozen. He thought of how quickly a company could erase a man. "What time?" Marcus asked, voice tight. Nina pulled out her phone and showed him a timestamp. Marcus stared at it, because that timestamp matched the private elevator's arrival time yesterday. A time when, as far as he knew, Claire had been alone. "What happened?" Marcus asked. Nina's lips pressed into a line. "Just do it." Marcus's hand tightened around his toolbox handle. He nodded slowly. "I'll look into it." Nina's gaze lingered on him like a warning. Then she walked away, heels clicking. Marcus stood in the hallway alone, listening to the HVAC hum, watching the camera's small red light blink. He felt like the building was holding its breath. Ding! The private elevator arrived, and Marcus realized he'd just been handed a choice he never asked for: be complicit or be crushed. The layoff started quietly, they always did. A calendar invite marked "check in." A manager with sympathetic eyes that didn't change the outcome. A cardboard box. Marcus saw it happen to Tanya from accounting. Single mom, always smiling, always bringing donuts on Fridays. She walked past Marcus in the lobby with tears on her face and a box in her arms, and he felt something inside him split. He found Dale in the facilities office. "What's going on, Oi?" Marcus demanded. Dale shrugged. "Restructuring. Gavin says we gotta tighten up." "And overtime?" Marcus asked. "That's how some of us survive." Dale leaned back, chewing gum. "Not my problem, Reed." Marcus's jaw clenched. "It is your problem when your team can't pay rent." Dale's eyes narrowed. "Watch your tone." Marcus swallowed anger like it was glass. That afternoon, he got called to the VIP floor again. Claire was in the hallway this time, wheelchair angled toward the windows. She looked out over the city like she was evaluating it. Nina spoke quietly beside her, but Marcus couldn't hear. Then Claire turned her head and looked directly at Marcus. "Come here," she said. Marcus approached, heart beating too loud. Claire's gaze was unreadable. "How's morale downstairs?" Marcus hesitated. "People are scared." Claire nodded slowly, like she'd expected that answer. "Fear is honest." Marcus frowned. "Fear makes people do bad things." Claire's eyes sharpened. "And loyalty makes them do good ones." Marcus felt a chill. "Is that what this is?" Claire tilted her head. "What is what?" Marcus stopped himself. He wasn't supposed to question the CEO, but he couldn't help it. "The requests," he said. "The camera log, the timing, the way—" he gestured vaguely. "The way everything feels staged." Claire's mouth curved slightly again. "That's an interesting observation," she said. "Tell me, Marcus, do you think people show their true selves when they believe no one's watching? Or when they know someone is?" Marcus stared at her, unsettled. Before he could answer, Gavin appeared at the end of the hallway. "Claire," he called bright. "There you are. The board meeting's in 20. Claire's gaze held Marcus for a beat longer. Then she said softly, "We all get tested. Some tests just have higher stakes." She wheeled away. The sound of the chair's wheels was smooth, practiced. Marcus watched her go, then turned toward the hallway camera. Its red light blinked back, a little heartbeat of surveillance, a little threat. That night, Marcus didn't delete the footage Nina asked for. Instead, he waited until the building was quieter, until security rounds were predictable, until the cafeteria lights dimmed. Then he went to the server room. Keycard. Code. Cold air hit his face like a confession. He logged in. His hands were steady until he pulled up the timestamp Nina had shown him. 2 minutes. He clicked. The camera feed loaded. At first, it was nothing. Empty hallway, stillness, the faint reflection of lights on polished floors. Then the private elevator doors slid open. Claire rolled out, alone. She stopped in the hallway. She looked around. No one. For a second, she sat completely still. And then, she placed her hands on the armrests. Her shoulders shifted. Her body rose. Not fully, not dramatically, but enough. Enough to show her knees straightening. Enough to show weight transferring. Enough to make Marcus's stomach drop into his shoes. Claire stood, just for a moment. Then she sat back down quickly, as if she'd caught herself being human. The elevator doors closed behind her. She rolled forward again. Marcus stared at the screen, heart pounding. His first instinct was denial. Maybe it was a spasm. Maybe it was something else. But he knew what he'd seen. He replayed it. Again. Again. And then the system pinged. Unauthorized access detected. Marcus froze. A second later, footsteps outside the server room. Fast, heavy, security. Marcus's mind raced. He yanked the USB from his pocket, plugged it in, and copied the footage and access logs in one frantic sweep, fingers flying. He cleared the session. He wiped his tracks as best he could, just enough to buy time. The door handle rattled. "Facilities!" a voice barked. "Open up!" Marcus's mouth went dry. He grabbed his toolbox, forced himself to breathe, and opened the door like he belonged there. A security guard glared at him. "What are you doing in here?" Marcus lifted the toolbox. "Temperature alarm," he lied smoothly. "Cooling unit flagged. I got the ticket." The guard stared, suspicious. Marcus held his gaze. Calm on the outside, wildfire on the inside. Finally, the guard grunted. "Be quick." Marcus nodded. "Always." As the guard walked away, Marcus waited until footsteps faded. Then he leaned against the cold wall and closed his eyes. Because now he wasn't just scared about layoffs. Now he was scared about the kind of game being played on the top floor. A game where pain could be faked, where people could be tested like lab rats, and where men like Marcus, men with bills and children and no safety net, could be crushed as collateral. He pulled the USB out of his pocket and held it tight. It felt like a bullet. It felt like a lifeline. It felt like a storm. For 2 days, Marcus moved through the building like a man wearing his own secret under his skin. He fixed door sensors. He replaced a cracked screen in a conference room. He smiled when he had to. But inside, his thoughts circled the footage like vultures. Claire Whitmore stood up, so either she wasn't paralyzed. She had a condition that came and went. Someone had manipulated the footage. But Marcus knew the camera feed. He knew the angles. The metadata was clean. He started watching more. Not obsessively, strategically. He pulled elevator logs. Who went up, who went down, what time. He cross-referenced them with meeting schedules and badge swipes. A pattern emerged. Gavin Holt spent a lot of time on the VIP floor late at night. HR officers visited quietly. Legal visited quietly. People left carrying folders. And then a new email hit everyone's inbox. Organizational restructuring, phase 2. Marcus opened it with a tight chest. It announced a new performance metric system. Immediate role realignment. Insurance plan changes. Insurance plan changes. Marcus felt the room tilt. He pictured Maya's inhaler, the doctor visits, the prescription that cost too much even with coverage. He marched to HR. Hannah, the HR manager, looked up at him with a weary smile. "Marcus, hi." "Is it true?" Marcus asked, voice controlled. "Are you cutting insurance?" Hannah's eyes flicked to the glass wall as if the building itself might be listening. "I can't discuss—" "Hannah," Marcus said, softer now. "I have a kid." Hannah's mouth tightened. "It's adjustments, some tears, some changes. People will lose coverage," Marcus said. Hannah didn't answer. That was answer enough. Marcus left HR shaking with rage that had nowhere to go. In the stairwell, he pulled out his phone and called his sister, Renee. She answered on the second ring. "Hey, you okay?" Marcus hesitated. "I don't know," Renee went quiet. What happened? Marcus stared at the gray concrete wall. I think something's wrong at work, like bigger than layoffs. Renee sighed. Marcus, don't do anything stupid. You got Maya. Marcus swallowed. That's why I can't do nothing. A pause. Then Renee said gently, What do you need? Marcus looked down at his lunchbox. The zipper was stuck again. He forced it open, hands trembling, and saw the note he'd written Maya yesterday. Be brave. He exhaled. I need to know I'm not crazy, he said. Renee's voice softened. Tell me. Marcus told her pieces. Careful, vague, not enough to incriminate himself over the phone. When he finished, Renee didn't laugh. She didn't tell him he was imagining things. She just said, If you're right, you're in danger. Marcus's throat tightened. I know. Then you need proof, Renee said. Real proof, not just a clip. Marcus looked at the USB drive. I have some. Renee's voice turned firm. Then protect it. And don't be alone. Marcus hung up and stared at the stairwell door, because being alone was the only thing he'd been for a long time. A single father was always alone in certain ways. The world would clap for you, look at you stepping up, and still let you drown quietly in the night. But he wasn't alone now, not with Maya depending on him, not with coworkers depending on him, not with a truth that had teeth. That evening, Nina found him in the hallway near the service elevator. Her smile was gone. Marcus, she said. Marcus's muscles tightened. Nina. She looked around. Walk with me. Marcus did. They moved through the corridor, past framed awards, past doors that opened into rooms Marcus wasn't allowed to enter. Nina's voice was low. You didn't delete the footage. Marcus's heart beat once, hard. No. Nina stopped, turned to him. Do you know what you did? Marcus held her gaze. I did my job. Nina's eyes flashed. Your job is to follow instructions. Marcus's mouth tightened. My job is to keep systems running, not to erase reality. For a second, Nina looked like she might slap him. Instead, she exhaled shakily. I didn't want this, she whispered. Marcus blinked. What? Nina's voice broke just enough to sound human. It was supposed to be controlled, contained. Test. Marcus stared at her, cold spreading through him. A test. Nina looked away, ashamed. Ms. Whitmore, Claire. She believes loyalty is rare. She wanted to see who would exploit her. Who would betray her? Marcus's jaw clenched. So she faked being paralyzed. Nina's eyes filled with something that wasn't tears but was close. It's complicated. It's cruel, Marcus said. Nina flinched. Gavin wasn't supposed to take it this far. Marcus's eyes sharpened. Take it this far? Nina swallowed. He's using it. He's pushing through deals while she's vulnerable. He's forcing HR to cut people and calling it efficiency. Marcus's hands curled into fists. And Claire is just watching? Nina hesitated. She thinks the ends justify the means. Marcus laughed once, harsh. That's what every villain says. Nina's gaze snapped to him. Be careful. Marcus leaned closer. No, you be careful. Because you're in this too. Nina's eyes widened. I didn't. You helped her, Marcus said, voice low. You asked me to delete logs. Nina's face went pale. I was following orders. Marcus's voice softened, just a fraction. So was I, for years. And look where that got us. Nina swallowed hard. Then, like she was stepping off a ledge, she said, There's a board meeting on Friday. Gavin's planning to finalize a sale of one of our divisions. He's calling it strategic. It'll gut the company. He'll blame it on the accident. Marcus's chest tightened. And Claire? Nina's eyes flicked toward the executive wing. She's not stopping him. Marcus stared at her, feeling something in him settle into place like a lock clicking. Friday, the day everything would either collapse or explode. That night, Marcus went home, made Maya dinner, and tried to act normal. But Maya saw through him the way kids did. "Dad," she said as he washed dishes, "you're doing the tight face." Marcus paused. "The tight face?" Maya nodded solemnly. "When you're worried but you don't want me to know." Marcus's throat tightened. "I'm okay." Maya crossed her arms. "You always say that." He turned off the faucet and dried his hands slowly. Then he knelt in front of her. "Peanut," he said softly, "if something bad happens at work, it's not because of you, okay?" Maya's eyes widened. "Are you going to lose your job?" Marcus's chest hurt. He pulled her into a hug, holding her like she was the only true thing in the world. "I'm going to do everything I can," he whispered into her hair, "to make sure we're okay." Maya hugged him back with surprising strength. "Be brave," she whispered again. Marcus closed his eyes. "I will," he promised. And in that moment, he knew. He wasn't just fighting for fairness. He was fighting for his daughter's belief that doing the right thing mattered. Friday came with rain, the kind that made the city look like it was crying without making noise. Marcus arrived early. His lunchbox felt heavier than usual. The USB drive was taped inside its lining, hidden like a secret he couldn't afford to lose. He moved through the building with a plan in his head. Fragile, risky, but the only plan he had. Step 1, get into the board meeting. Step 2, get the footage onto the screen. Step 3, do it in front of witnesses so it couldn't be erased, because in a company like this, truth wasn't truth unless it had an audience. He took the service elevator up. Ding! He stepped out on the VIP floor. The hallway was quiet, carpet swallowing sound. The camera blinked red. Marcus walked past it without looking up. He could feel it watching him. Nina waited near the executive wing, pale and tense. "You're really doing this," she whispered. Marcus nodded. "I have to." Nina's eyes flicked to his lunchbox. "Is it in there?" Marcus didn't answer. He didn't need to. Nina swallowed. "They'll destroy you." Marcus's voice was calm. "They've been destroying us for years." Nina's eyes shimmered. "Claire will hate you." Marcus looked at her. "I don't need her to like me. I need her to face what she did." Nina stepped aside. Marcus walked toward the boardroom. That was when Claire appeared at the far end of the hallway. In her wheelchair, perfect posture, perfect hair. But her eyes looked tired, like she hadn't slept, like the game had started to rot in her hands. Marcus stopped. Claire rolled closer, stopping a few feet from him. "You're going to do something reckless," she said quietly. Marcus held her gaze. "I'm going to do something honest." Claire's jaw tightened. "You don't understand what's at stake." Marcus's voice stayed steady. "People's lives, insurance, jobs, their dignity." Claire's eyes flickered. "I built this company from nothing." Marcus nodded slowly. "Then you should know what it feels like to be nothing to someone else." Claire stared at him. For a second, something soft tried to rise in her expression. Then Gavin's voice echoed from the elevator bank behind her. "Claire," he called. "There you are. Come on. We're live in 2 minutes." Claire's shoulders stiffened. Marcus's pulse thundered. This was it. The moment where the story either ended quietly or became a storm. Claire looked at Marcus one last time. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Don't plug it in." Marcus's throat tightened. "Too late," he whispered back. Claire's eyes flashed. Anger, fear, something else. Then she rolled away. Marcus watched her go. He walked to the boardroom door. He pushed it open. The boardroom was bright and sterile, lit like an operating theater. A long table, glass walls, a screen at the front showing a title slide. Strategic Divestment, Phase 2. At the far corner, a camera with a red recording light. REC, the meeting was being live-streamed to a limited audience. Executives, select investors, legal. Gavin stood at the head of the table like a preacher with a spreadsheet. "And with Claire's condition," he was saying smoothly, "we must ensure stability. This decision positions us for the future." Marcus stepped into the room. Every head turned, a few eyebrows lifted, a few mouths tightened. Gavin paused, smile still on his face, but his eyes sharpening. "Well," Gavin said, voice warm as poison, "Marcus Reed, Facilities. To what do we owe the pleasure?" Marcus didn't answer Gavin. He looked at Claire. She sat near the windows, wheelchair angled slightly away from the table. Her hands rested on her lap like she was holding herself together. Claire met Marcus's gaze, and Marcus saw it, just for a second. A crack, not weakness, a warning. Marcus walked forward anyway. One of the board members leaned toward another, whispering. Gavin chuckled. Is there a maintenance issue we should know about? Marcus's voice was quiet, but it carried. There's a truth issue. A ripple of discomfort moved through the room. Gavin's smile thinned. Marcus, this is not appropriate. Marcus set his lunchbox on the table. The sound was small, but in the silence, it hit like a gavel. He unzipped it. His fingers didn't shake, not because he wasn't scared, but because fear had turned into focus. He pulled out the USB drive. Gavin's eyes narrowed. What is that? Marcus looked at the camera, then he looked back at the table. It's proof, he said. Claire's voice came, sharp and low. Stop! Marcus's chest tightened. He spoke anyway. You all are making decisions that will ruin people's lives, Marcus said, and you're doing it under a lie. Gavin's voice hardened. Security? Marcus lifted a hand. Don't. The guards at the door hesitated, glancing at Gavin, then at the camera, then at Claire. Because cameras changed behavior. Claire had built her test on that. Marcus was building his truth on it. Gavin stepped forward, eyes cold now. You are a facilities employee. You have no authority here. Marcus met his gaze. I have evidence. Gavin hissed softly. You don't want to do this. Marcus looked at the board members, people with expensive watches and clean hands. Then he looked at Claire, and his voice lowered, turning personal, heavy. I have a daughter, Marcus said, and you're about to take away my insurance so you can balance your numbers and call it leadership. A board member shifted uncomfortably. Gavin's jaw tightened. This is emotional manipulation. Marcus nodded once. No, this is reality. He stepped to the presentation port. Claire's voice broke, just slightly. Marcus, don't. Marcus paused, hand hovering. He looked at her, really looked. You wanted to know who would betray you, Marcus said softly. But you didn't realize you were giving them permission. Claire's eyes flared. You don't know what I've been through. Marcus's voice stayed calm, but it cut deeper than shouting. And you don't know what we go through. He plugged the USB in. The screen flickered. The title slide vanished. A security camera feed appeared. Empty hallway. VIP floor. Timestamp 2 weeks ago. The room went silent in a way that felt like the air had been vacuumed out. Gavin's face went pale. Claire's eyes locked on the screen like she was watching herself from outside her body. On the video, the private elevator doors slid open. Claire rolled out alone. She looked around. Then she stood. A small movement. A devastating one. A lie with legs. A gasp escaped someone at the table. A board member whispered, "What the?" Gavin lunged toward the laptop controlling the feed. Marcus stepped in front of him. "Touch it," Marcus said, voice low, "and I upload everything to every investor on that list." Gavin froze. His eyes burned into Marcus with hatred. Claire's voice came, hoarse. "Turn it off." Marcus didn't. He let the clip play until Claire sat back down. Until the lie was undeniable. Then the screen switched to another file. Email headers, digital signatures, timestamps, Gavin's name, documents that showed decisions made on behalf of the CEO, signed while she was incapacitated. The board members leaned forward. Their faces changed, the way people's faces changed when they realized the risk had shifted onto them. Gavin's voice was tight. "This is fabricated." Marcus shook his head. "It's not." He clicked again. Elevator logs, badge swipes, late-night visits, HR access, legal access, a map of a quiet coup. The room erupted into overlapping voices. "What is this?" "Gavin, explain." "Claire, were you aware?" Gavin slammed a hand on the table. "Enough!" The room went silent again. Gavin pointed at Marcus, shaking with fury. "You're a nobody. You're a—" Marcus's eyes hardened. "Say it!" Gavin's mouth twisted. "You're a—" Claire's voice cut through like a whip. "Gavin!" He turned toward her. Claire's hands were clenched in her lap so hard her knuckles were white. Her voice was quieter now, but it carried more power than Gavin's shouting. "Sit down," she said. Gavin stared at her, stunned. Claire looked at the board, and in that moment, Marcus saw something he hadn't expected. Not a villain, not a mastermind. A woman realizing her own cruelty had created a monster. Claire swallowed. Then she spoke, each word like it cost her something. "Yes," Claire said. "I exaggerated my condition." A shockwave moved through the room. A board member spluttered. "You what?" Claire's eyes glistened with anger, not at Marcus, but at herself. "I did it to test loyalty," she said, voice steadying. I thought it would reveal who would exploit weakness." Marcus's voice came, low. "It did." Claire's gaze snapped to him. Marcus didn't flinch. "It revealed Gavin," Marcus said, "and it revealed you." Silence. For a second, only the rain against the windows could be heard. Then Claire's shoulders sagged, just a fraction, just enough to show she was human. "I was wrong," she said, voice rough, "and I didn't stop him fast enough." Gavin laughed, sharp and bitter. "Oh, spare me. You created the stage and now you're upset about the play?" Claire's eyes turned to ice. "You forged my signature." Gavin spread his hands. "I did what you wanted. Efficiency, control, results." Claire stared at him as if seeing him clearly for the first time. Then she looked back at Marcus. Her voice softened, almost unbearably. "Why?" she asked. "Why would you do this?" Marcus's throat tightened, because the answer wasn't simple, because it held years of being overlooked, disrespected, used, because it held Maya's small voice. Be brave. Marcus looked at the board, then at Claire, then at the camera. "Because people like me don't get second chances," Marcus said quietly. "If we stay quiet, we disappear. And if we speak up, we get crushed. I'm tired of choosing between drowning and silence." The room held its breath. Claire's eyes shimmered. Gavin's face twisted. "This is sentimental garbage." Marcus turned toward him slowly. His voice was calm, and that calm was terrifying. "You're right," Marcus said. "It's not about feelings. It's about what's legal." He clicked again. A final file appeared. Audio, a recorded conversation. Gavin's voice, unmistakable. "Cut their insurance first. That'll make them quit on their own." The board members erupted. One stood up. "Gavin, that's—" Gavin surged forward, face red with rage. Security stepped in, but before anyone could move, Claire spoke again. "Stop," she said. The room stilled. Claire's hands moved to the wheelchair armrests, and then, slowly, deliberately, she stood. This time, fully. The lie fell away like a sheet. Gasps, whispers. Claire stood tall at the head of the table, eyes blazing. "You're done," she told Gavin, effective immediately. Gavin stared at her, stunned, then snarled. "You think you can fire me after this? After you humiliated yourself?" Claire's voice was iron. "After this, I can do whatever the board allows me to do. And right now," she looked at them, "you've all just watched evidence of fraud and abuse of power. If you side with him, you're complicit." The board members exchanged glances. Money hated risk. Truth was risk, but fraud was bigger risk. Gavin's jaw clenched. He looked around like a man realizing the room had turned against him. Then his gaze landed on Marcus again. Hatred, pure and hot. "This isn't over," Gavin hissed. Marcus didn't blink. "For you, it is." Security escorted Gavin out. As he passed Marcus, he leaned close enough for Marcus to smell the expensive cologne masking something rotten. "You just made enemies," Gavin whispered. Marcus's voice was quiet. "I've had enemies my whole life. They just didn't wear suits." Gavin was gone. The boardroom was left with the aftermath. A CEO standing, a lie exposed, a father breathing hard like he'd run a marathon. Claire looked at Marcus, eyes wet but angry. "You had no right," she said. Marcus nodded slowly. "You're right." Claire blinked, thrown off. Marcus continued, voice steady. "I had no right to access those logs, no right to bring it here, no right to embarrass you." Claire's lips trembled. "Then why—" Marcus's voice sharpened. "But you had no right to test people's livelihoods like they were toys." Silence. Claire's shoulders dropped, and for the first time, she looked small, not physically, but morally. "What do you want?" she asked. Marcus's chest rose and fell. He could feel every heartbeat. He thought of Tanya with her cardboard box. He thought of coworkers whose names never showed up in press releases. He thought of Maya's inhaler. "I don't want a promotion," Marcus said. "I don't want hush money." Claire's eyes widened slightly. Marcus looked at the board. I want every insurance cut reversed. I want every person who is forced out offered reinstatement or severance they deserve. I want BT policy that protects employees from executive retaliation. A board member scoffed. That's not... Claire raised a hand. It is. The board member shut up. Claire's eyes stayed on Marcus. And you? She asked quietly. What about you? Marcus swallowed. Then he said the truth that had been building in him for years. I want my daughter to live in a world where being honest doesn't mean getting destroyed. Claire's eyes glistened. The camera's red light blinked. REC witness. The meeting shifted from strategy to reckoning. And Marcus stood in the middle of it, a man who had walked into the lion's den carrying only a lunchbox and a truth. The fallout moved fast. It always did when wealthy people realized the law might touch them. By Monday, Gavin Holt was suspended pending investigation. The board hired an external firm. HR sent out a company-wide email that sounded like damage control and prayer. Claire Whitmore recorded a statement, not a polished PR clip, a real one. She sat alone in her office, no wheelchair, no assistants, and looked into the camera like it was a mirror she couldn't avoid. I made a decision, she said. I justified it as strategy. It was not. It was fear, and it hurt people. The internet didn't forgive easily, but it listened. Employees didn't trust easily, but they watched. Marcus didn't feel victorious. He felt tired. He kept going to work because bills didn't pause for moral revolutions. People stopped him in hallways now, calling him by name, offering small, awkward thank yous. Some looked at him with admiration. Some looked at him with worry, as if standing up had made him contagious. Claire called him into her office on Wednesday. Marcus walked in with his lunchbox, habit-like armor. Claire stood by the window, hands clasped behind her back. She turned when he entered. No wheelchair, just a woman in a suit, standing in the light she used to own. You're brave, she said, like the words tasted unfamiliar. Marcus didn't smile. I was desperate. Claire's eyes softened. That's not the same thing. Marcus set his lunchbox on the chair beside him and remained standing. Claire hesitated, then said quietly, I'm sorry. Marcus blinked. He'd heard apology before, thin ones, corporate ones. This one sounded like it hurt her throat. I don't know if sorry fixes anything, Marcus said. It doesn't, Claire admitted, but it's a start. A long silence stretched between them. Outside, the city moved like it always did. Cars, people, rain drying into a hard blue sky. Claire swallowed. The board wants to offer you a position. Marcus's jaw tightened. No. Claire's eyebrows rose. You don't know what it is. Marcus shook his head. I know what it would mean. Claire studied him. Tell me. Marcus exhaled slowly. It would mean I got rewarded for doing what was right, while other people still struggle. It would mean you get to point at me like proof you changed, without changing what matters. Claire's gaze flickered, as if she'd been punched somewhere deep. Marcus continued, voice steady. I don't want to be your symbol. Claire's voice was quiet. Then what do you want? Marcus looked her in the eye. I want you to build a system that doesn't need a Marcus, he said, because next time, there might not be one. Claire's eyes shimmered. For a moment, she looked like she might argue. Then she nodded once. Help me, she said, not as a symbol, as a builder. Marcus hesitated, not because he didn't believe she could change, because he knew change was expensive, and people always tried to pay with someone else's wallet. What does that mean? Marcus asked. Claire stepped toward her desk and slid a folder across it. Inside were drafts of policy changes, whistleblower protections, independent R reporting lines, insurance coverage minimums, executive oversight audits, a fund for employees harmed during restructuring. Marcus stared at the pages, heart thudding. Claire's voice was low. I can sign these, but I need someone who understands what it's like to be on the side that gets crushed. Marcus looked up. And you think I'll trust you? Claire met his gaze. No. She took a breath. I think you'll watch me, she said. And I think you'll call me out the second I slip back into fear. Marcus's throat tightened. He thought of Maya. He thought of being brave. He thought of how hard it was to build something better when the world kept handing you hammers and asking you to fix a house you didn't own. I'll help, Marcus said finally. But I'm not your shield. Claire nodded. I wouldn't deserve you if you were. 2 weeks later, Marcus picked Maya up from school earlier than usual. He stood outside the gates as kids poured out like laughter and chaos. Maya spotted him and ran, backpack bouncing. "Dad!" she squealed, launching into his arms. Marcus hugged her, breathing in the warm, innocent smell of crayons and sunshine. "You're early," Maya said, delighted. Marcus smiled. "I wanted to be." Maya looked up at him, eyes bright. "Did your work get better?" Marcus hesitated. How do you explain to a 7-year-old that the world didn't change overnight? That sometimes the best you could do was push it a few inches toward justice? He squeezed her hand. "A little," he said. "And I'm working on making it better." Maya nodded solemnly, like she understood more than he expected. Then she said, "Did you be brave?" Marcus laughed softly. He crouched, forehead touching hers, just like she did to him. "Yeah," he whispered. "I did." Maya grinned. "I knew you would." As they walked home, they passed an elevator in the subway station. The doors opened. Ding! Marcus felt his chest tighten, old reflex. Then he exhaled. Because the sound didn't feel like a countdown anymore. It felt like a reminder. A door can open. A man can step out. And sometimes the world shifts. Not because the powerful decide to be kind, but because someone with nothing left to lose decides to tell the truth in a room full of people who don't want to hear it. That night, Marcus packed Maya's lunch. He wrote a new note. "You were right. Being brave matters. Dad." He placed it in the bag and closed the zipper, smooth this time. Then he sat at the kitchen table and let himself feel something he hadn't felt in a long while. Not safety, not certainty, but a quiet, steady kind of hope. The kind that didn't shout. The kind that lasted. If you've ever been the person everyone overlooked, the one they called replaceable, I hope Marcus's story reminds you of something simple. The truth has weight, even in hands that tremble. If this touched a corner of your life, leave a message for Marcus in the comments. He'll hear it in the way brave people always do.